months now, 5 months now, and finally interviewed someone yesterday. I'm like, oh,
I'm their trustee.
and can't start this for 2 months. She's got some personal stuff she's working through, and she's like, sent me an email. She's like, I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm really interested. You know, if you guys can wait. I'm like, I've been waiting for 5-6 months anyway. It's like,
That's right.
let's just, you know, we'll grab lunch every couple weeks, keep talking, talk more about the opportunity, and I'm like, you're my girl. You find something different, please give me the courtesy to let me know.
Yeah, let me know, right?
Is that where you were born?
No, that's where we happen to live.
Oh.
Like, I'll even take the posting down for the position.
Yep.
Yeah.
I gotta get a plumber to his house. It's just so hard.
It is.
I never kind of own my own company. I never, because
Always something every.
you HR and
When
stuff
home
like that.
it's like, oh, by the way, we got this
Kind of
happen or that happened.
Right?
You guys like, now you got this
We got to be to this meeting or that meeting.
system and your purpose. Like, you just never realize how tough it is to kind of manage people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Become so much more personal.
Hopefully
You get to the point where you're like, oh, can I just work?
Well, I mean, I can imagine.
My partner came in after he resigned. He's like, my partner, because this guy reports my partner. He's like, comes my out for like 5 days, he's just shaking his head.
Oh, yeah.
We just sell these fucking equipment like this. Like, we can't.
You know, he went to
Commitments
his son was working in the White House. Got him front row seats at that military parade.
Really?
14th, and there was a clip of him on some news channel.
deflating.
Good for him. That sounds like fun.
Awful.
Yeah,
Okay,
front
well,
row seats.
I'll tell him. I said, I saw you.
Like, technicians come and go. It's like, okay.
Yeah, he emailed me.
I knew it was you.
Yeah.
Senior manager guy like that.
But yeah, that'd be cool to see that in person. We watched a lot of it on TV.
That was really a cool
And they get this, he's got a good friend of his that
Yeah, we
used
love
to work with them.
some food.
And he really wants to come work with us to take Marty's spot. And I'm like,
You gotta be kidding.
why? So that we can kind of build him up, and then when Marty's ready to take him away from us, I'm like, Jay, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. I'm like, no, we gotta make a break from him. We gotta go find somebody else. That is the worst idea I've ever heard. Because you know exactly what will happen. He's like, yeah, you're right. He's like, but he's great.
I probably wouldn't even go back.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. The manager apologized, but I'm like,
We gotta go find somebody else.
I don't know.
That's bad.
Yeah.
What kind of position?
Department manager
How do you
for
feel about
construction
it?
materials testing group,
Yeah,
for
it's
quality
just-
control group.
Shouldn't be
He's got
good.
a great PG, young guy, got all the certifications. Clients love him. And did really well with
Yes.
clients. And we didn't have to think about
Running
it.
behind.
Things like,
Behind. Oh,
let him
yeah.
go.
Maybe staff doesn't know it's time to sit. Yeah. Yeah, it's all staff that's standing up. I think they know it's time.
As soon as Terry looks over, I'll find out.
Okay.
We have a new leader today? We have a new leader today?
New leader, that's right. Taking over David.
Where's, what's her name?
Gianna?
Gianna, yeah.
Gianna. Still got it.
Where is she? She's
I don't
on
know.
vacation? She's celebrating the holiday?
Gianna German.
I have no idea.
She's celebrating the holiday?
Maybe so.
Fernando County was closed today. Why is Pasco
that
County
really?
open?
Is that right?
It's not one of our holidays that we ever have on our list.
It's not one that pops up on my chart.
Is it truly a federal holiday?
Yeah.
It
Banks
is
are
truly
closed. It's not a
federal
federal holiday.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah, Denise went to the post office, didn't realize it.
I had no idea. Federal. So, technically, we observe all federal holidays.
Western County still is
Technically, we should have closed it. I'm like, I don't know.
I know. It just kind of snuck up on everybody.
And partner texted me, like, hey, is Dave federal holiday? I'm like, I don't know. Check my calendar. I'm like, oh shit, it is. Some sort of holiday.
Uh-huh.
Order in the court.
Oh, she's staying in terminal.
Yeah, she's got to pay pop. And for us, the poppers, she Patrick? Are we ready? Yeah. Mic's on? Okay. David, are we ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Very good. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we would stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, could I have the clerk read the roll call, please?
Jamie Girardi.
Here.
Christopher Poole.
Here.
John Moody.
Here.
Matthew Munns. Derek Conlon.
Here.
Richard Tonella.
Here.
Chairman Charles Gregg.
I'm here. And the proof of publication, please?
The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on March 5th, 2025, April 30th, 2025, June 4th, 2025, and June 8th, 2025, or by affidavit of certified mailings and site postings.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the meeting today, but first, before we do that, anybody who is planning to give testimony today or get up and speak, if you would stand up and raise your right hand, please, and be sworn. Anybody who plans on speaking.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, so help you God?
Okay. So I'd like to welcome everybody today. We are the Planning Commission. We're appointed by the Board of County Commissioners, and we meet twice a month. We serve as the local planning agency. We hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissioners our recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, and conditional use requests. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. If anyone is in opposition to any comprehensive plan amendment, land development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the County Commission meeting. Those dates are available for you if you don't know what they are. Those of you who are not familiar with the format of the meeting today, we have three sections. We have continuances, we have consent items, and we have regular items. Continuances are when the staff or the applicant has requested that an application be continued for any number of reasons, and it's been our custom, unless there are extenuating circumstances, to grant those requests for continuance. The consent items are items that we'll go through one at a time. As we go through consent items, if there's something on consent that you would like to have discussed, raise your hand and we'll pull it off consent and put it onto the regular items. Then we have the regular items, and those are items that will be fully vetted today. You'll have a chance to hear testimony from the applicant, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions if you have any. So applicants will have 5 minutes to make their presentations, and questioners will have 3 minutes to ask their questions. We try to observe those times pretty rigidly, so everybody gets a chance to speak that needs to speak. And then following the presentation, there's an opportunity for anybody online. Will there be anybody online, do you know, today?
Mr. Chair, we have no one signed up on WebEx.
Okay, has anybody requested additional time?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. So you're taking Gianna's place today, huh? I see. All right, okay. We'll try to be easy on you.
No, we won't.
Some of us will, yeah. Okay, so for those of you who have telephones, and I'm sure most of you do, please put them on the silent position so we won't interrupt anybody when they're speaking. And before we start the regular meeting, is there anyone here to speak on any item that's not on today's agenda? I don't see anyone. Okay. I think we've covered everything. So I think we can start.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission members. I'm Kurt Syverson of Planning Development and Economic Growth. The first item on continuance, you were sitting as a local...
Do you mind lifting your microphone up a little bit? You're taller than
Yes, sir.
Gianna, I think.
Maybe a little bit. The first item on continuance, you were sitting as a local planning agency for is item PC1, PDE 257781, a zoning amendment in the name of Enclave at Livingston, MPUD. A continuance to the July 24th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting at 1:30 p.m. in Newport Richey is being requested.
All right, is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? Okay, next.
Item PC2, you are sitting as a local planning agency for. PC2 is PDE 250093, a comprehensive plan amendment in the name of CPAS 24(23) Law Property. A continuance to the July 24th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting at 1:30 p.m. in Newport Richey is being requested. This is the last item on continuance.
Okay, anyone here to speak on that one? Okay,
Motion to approve the continuances?
we have a motion to approve the continuances. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, pass. And consent.
Items PC3 and PC4 are companion items. Item PC3, you'll be sitting as a local planning agency for. PC3 is PDE 250165, a comprehensive plan amendment, CPAS 23(18), Pasco Mine, providing for a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use maps 2-15 and sheet 4, changing Res 1, residential 1 dwelling unit per gross acre, to PD plan development on approximately 19.41 acres of real property located at the south side of County Line Road. This is coming with the recommendation that the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right. Is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? See no objection? Okay, next.
Item PC4 is the companion rezoning to PC3. Item PC4 is PDE 257749, a zoning amendment in the name of Pasco Mine MPD Master Plan Unit Development. K&M Pasco 120 Holdings, LLC. Request is rezoning request from an AC agricultural district to an MPD Master Plan Unit Development to allow for the development of 30,000 square feet of commercial and retail, 150,000 square feet of light industrial, and 7 acres of concrete batch plant and associated infrastructure on approximately 19.41 acres located on the south side of County Line Road, 1.25 miles west of the Suncoast Parkway. This is coming with the recommendation of approval with conditions from the Planning Development and Economic Growth Department.
All right. And the applicant's present again? No one here to speak? Okay.
Mr.
Is that the last one on that one? Yeah, it is. So just want to note that I will be abstaining from voting on those two,
Which ones?
3 and 4.
Okay, and, yeah, I have to recuse myself from 5 and 6, so if we can vote on those separately, 3 and 4.
Yeah, vote on each one of them separately.
Yep.
Okay.
Move to approve items PC3 and PC4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Okay, PC5.
Chairman, PC5 and PC6 are companion items, and we do have individuals sign up to speak. We ask that these items are moved to the regular agenda.
Okay. So we'll pull PC 5 and 6. Okay, those go to regular, okay. All right, so those are the only items on regular, right?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. Okay, and the applicant present? Okay. Anyone here to object on those? Okay. Who requested that they be pulled?
People sign up to speak.
Pardon me?
There's people sign up to speak,
Oh, okay,
so,
all right.
so we have to have a presentation.
Okay, so go ahead and start with 5.
All right, item PC5, you'll be sitting as a local planning agency. This is the companion, oh, I'm sorry.
Take your time. Time's up.
Item PC5, you'll be sitting as a local planning agency for. Item PC5 is PDE 250148 to be presented by staff.
Good afternoon. Here, my name is Brian Juncker with the Planning Development Economic Growth Department. Here to present Comprehensive Plan Amendment PDE 250148, River Ridge PD. The proposal is a comprehensive plan amendment. We are amending the FLU from Res 3, Residential 3, Res 6, Residential 6, and Res 9, Residential 9 to PD Plan Development. The purpose of the comprehensive plan is to reinstate the previously approved entitlement from the River Ridge DRI and request an increase of 64,285 square feet on parcel K3. The location is on the south side of Ridge Road, approximately 1,185 feet for parcel K3 and 1,187 feet for parcel I2 west of the intersection of Ridge Road and Moon Lake, and on the east side of Moon Lake, approximately 1,455 feet for parcel P2 north of the intersection of Ridge Road and Moon Lake Road. Creating a super area policy under policy FLU 7.184 River Ridge PD. There is a substantial modification in the name of rezoning petition 7688 River Ridge MPDD accompanying this comprehensive plan. The subject site is located on the Central Market area. Here's a photo of a context map where the subject sites are located on Ridge Road and Moon Lake Road. Here's the site location, a little bit more context with what you have surrounding the 3 parcels. Here is the transportation network map. We got Ridge Road, 2 parcels on Ridge Road, and we got 1 parcel on Moon Lake Road. There is an 8-foot multipass trail, Moon Lake Road, 8-foot multipass trail on Ridge Road, and a 12-foot multipass on Ridge Road extension. Here is a map of the existing future land uses. And here is what is being proposed, PD plan development. Here is a photo of the sub-area policy 7.184 River Ridge PD. Here are the policies. The proposed amendment are consistent with the following comprehensive plan policies. And these come to you with a recommendation to recommend the local planning agency find the proposed amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Any questions?
Before we vote, do you want to do both of them? Would that be your pleasure up here? They go together?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, they're actually not exact companions,
Okay,
so
So they're
we
se-
should do them separately,
okay,
just because they're different conversations.
okay.
May I? May I? Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, 34652. In all my years, and this is starting my 30th year, I've never had another set of frustrating documents like these. I have had the pleasure of trying to figure out the River Ridge rescinded DRI MPUD for the last year. It had a life before me with another attorney. So when I was brought on, I came to realize that the DRI was rescinded without making sure it didn't create any conflicts with the comp plan or the MPUD. Well, guess what? It created conflicts with the comp plan and issues with the MPUD. So I was tasked on behalf of 3 different folks that have property or contracts in the River Ridge. There's only a few vacant parcels, so this is a labor of love for a few vacant parcels so this project can get built out. So I was brought on, and staff joyfully welcomed me to the team to try to figure out how to straighten out this paperwork. So ultimately, for the comp plan, when you look at the exhibits, you're like, wow, that's weird. That doesn't include all of River Ridge. Why is that? That's because when the DRI was rescinded, it created conflicts with 3 parcels. Those parcels are known as MPUD parcel P2, MPUD parcel I2, and MPUD parcel K3. With regard to P2 and I2, all this amendment does is put back in place the entitlements that are on the MPUD plan for River Ridge.
Can we put those on the screen for everybody so they can see what you, which
See where
parcels you're
those
talking
are?
about?
Sure. If somebody wants to pull that back up. P2 is on Moon Lake, just a little bit north of the intersection of Decubulus, Moon Lake, and Ridge Road.
Mhm.
And then I2 is on the north side of Ridge Road, east of the intersection being, we'll say, Decubulus
There
and
we
Ridge
go.
Road. And the same with K3 on the north side of Ridge Road. So
Yeah.
for P2 and I2, nothing is changing. It's just an exact carryover from the MPUD into the comp plan to resolve the fact that today, as you can see, let's look, for example, on P2, it's Res 9, and the MPUD provides for 7,500 square feet of retail and 225 multifamily units. Well, retail, residential, conflict. So this is to clean that up. If you look at the next I2, it's a Res 3 land use, and it's the MPUD. Somebody bought this property and they own it, and the entitlements that they bought were 13,590 square feet of commercial. So that cleans that up. With regard to K3, the MPUD provides for 64,285 square feet of commercial. But in connection with the MPUD amendment, that's why I wanted you to hear these differently, because the comp plan only applies to 3 parcels. The MPUD is a substantial amendment to the MPUD, all in its totality. So for K3, the request is to add 60,715 square feet, bringing this parcel to 125,000 square feet of commercial. It is on Ridge Road. This is a build-out cleanup. Sometimes when people start, however many years ago, probably before I was probably in high school when this MPUD was started and approved, you don't always get the entitlements right. So we're trying to get all the entitlements right so this finally can build out for the property owners, for the county, and the like. So those are the 3 amendments with regard to the comp plan and the reasoning behind why you're seeing them, and they seem strange.
Barbara, just to clarify the record, I think you said for K3, it's increasing 60,715?
That's correct?
Is it not?
6715, from 64,285 to 125,000. Hoping that math, the difference is 6715. 60?
But the memo
60.
might be wrong then. The memo says that there's a net gain of 64,285 square feet. Okay, so the memo needs to,
Yes. So
Okay.
some math somewhere.
okay. Just want to clarify that.
Thank you. A million details when it comes to this paperwork, for sure. So I'm available if you have any other questions. with regard to this comprehensive plan amendment.
I just had a couple to clarify. So I'll use parcel K2, or parcel P2, for example. So when the DRI was rescinded, it reverted back to the original entitlements that were on the parcel? Because obviously 225 units is not Res 9, so.
So when you have a DRI, it provides vesting. So the DRI vests against the comp plan, comp plan changes, comp plan, vests against code changes. That is like one of the only reasons, one of the big benefits of a DRI. So fast forward, the state statute says you can rescind them, nobody cares about DRIs anymore. Well, there's issues with just doing that. And so when I do them, I always make sure, and clients yell at me because they're like, you're just trying to make more money. I'm like, you have to do this right. You got to make sure when you rescind them that there's not conflicts with the comp plan, there's not issues with the MPUD, because the MPUD incorporates the DRI map H. But in this case, so the DRI was just rescinded. The land use on this property is Res 9. But this property owner owns property that they bought it with these entitlements on them, so.
And the original DRI allowed for those entitlements of
That's correct, the DRI and the MPUD.
residential.
Yeah, if you looked at the
multifamily.
MPUD approval today, and you pulled out the map, the approved map today, you would see those entitlements on it for P2. Likewise for I2, that's what you would see.
Yep, and so the whole reason the DRI was rescinded was going back to that state.
Because the state's, a couple things, right? Because the state said you can do it, and these DOs have internal expiration dates on them. And so instead of the brain damage of trying to amend a DO for a DRI that nobody cares about under the law, TBRPC doesn't care anymore, nobody cares. So instead of the brain damage of trying to go and amend something that doesn't really even have any rules left with it as to how you're supposed to deal with these DRI DOs, the idea is to follow the state statute and rescind the DRI. But it creates a paperwork problem, as we have found ourselves in here, but fixable. And I can tell you that we had a whole slew of people. I just do want to thank them briefly. David Engel, Terry Pitos, Amy Heiler, Brian Yunker, Kirk Siverson, William Vermillion, Ms. Blair, and Mr. Goldstein. This has been a labor to try to get this paperwork fixed. And it's, each one of them contributed.
And so really the only changes that's asking for more entitlements is the K3 parcel where
That's
it's
correct.
extra commercial, but the rest of it's just reinstating what was there.
Correct. And if it was under the DRI, K3 could have just amended the MPUD
Yep.
to get those entitlements.
Yep.
So, but because the DRI went away, then we had to put forth it in the comp plan,
Yep.
those additional entitlements.
Understood. Thanks.
You're welcome. Took
Okay.
me a while to figure all that out, so I'm happy to explain it to you. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Wilhite? Okay. Anybody in the audience line to sign up to speak on this one? Okay.
So you said we did have some people signed up to speak on this?
For PC6, the companion reason.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Very good.
Move to recommend approval of item PC5.
A motion to approve PC5,
I have a second.
and we have a second. Any further discussion of the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
And the record reflects that Jamie Girardi is
All right.
Item PC6, the companion rezoning to PC5. Item PC6 is PDE 257688 to be presented by staff. I'm staff.
Hi, staff.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission members.
That looks better.
Of Kurt Syverson, Planning Development and Economic Growth. Before you is PDE 257688, of rezoning the request of River Ridge MPUD. Signposting proof was provided to the clerk's office this morning. The county map. The subject site is illustrated by the red star. We're in west central Pasco County, Commissioner Yeager's district, in the central market area. Proposed is a substantial modification to the River Ridge MPUD The substantive intent is to reinstate the MPUD entitlements consistent with the built environment of River Ridge. In addition to reinstating the entitlements, changes to particular parcels have been requested. Before mentioned, parcel K3 seeks an increase of commercial entitlements originally approved for 64,285 square feet. An additional 60,700 square feet is requested, totaling 125,000 square feet of C1 and C2 commercial uses. Parcel JL seeks an increase of residential entitlements for the maximum development of one additional townhome, 4 units. This increases the total residential entitlements of JL from 256 to 260. Parcel I2 seeks a decrease of commercial entitlements originally approved for 13,800 square feet. A reduction of 210 square feet is proposed, totaling 13,590 square feet of C1 commercial uses. Parcel P2 seeks an increase from the height limit from 45 feet to 50 feet. The conditions of approval have been revised to codify the prospective changes to these parcels. It's our location map. In red, we see the River Ridge MPUD boundary, generally located on the south side of Ridge Road. A portion of River Ridge MPUD is located at the northeast intersection of Ridge and Moon Lake Road. Decubulus Road is the main thoroughfare of River Ridge MPUD. Our zoning map proposes not a change of zoning. The site maintains an MPUD zoning and will maintain an MPUD zoning by approval of this action. Our future land use map. Future land use classification of River Ridge has a respective residential 3, residential 6, and residential 9 classifications as illustrated. Heard prior, the pending plan development seeks parcels K3, P2, and I2. The rest will maintain their future land use classifications. Our context map. The River Ridge MPUD, inclusive of the former DRI Development of Regional Impact, is mostly built out and contains residential communities totaling 2,114 units. Non-residential endeavors of 466,290 square feet. The River Ridge MPUD contains public uses, including the River Ridge High School and Middle School Complex, conservation land, park acreage, and a golf course. South and east of the River Ridge MPUD are conservation lands owned by the Southwest Florida Water Management District. Here is our 2025 MPUD master plan, inclusive of the before-mentioned prospective changes to parcels I2, a reduction of square feet, P2, the height limit, K3, an additional square footage, and JL, additional residential entitlements. A variation has been requested and reviewed concurrently with the project. This is a variation from LDC section 805.6, requesting that non-residential parcel owners under single ownership are responsible for open space, landscape areas, wetland areas, related infrastructure without a CDD. PDE recommends approval of this variation request as it seeks the intent of the LDC section. Our recommendation of item PDE 257688 with the provided conditions and approval. Thank you for your time and consideration. I myself am available, and my supervisor, very talented William Vermillion, are available for questions. Thank you.
Flattery will get you nowhere.
You never know.
Sometimes it does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Barbara Wilhite, still at 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey. I have spoke to the folks that are here before, so I know they're from Dawson Creek Lane. If you want to pull up an aerial with, because I noticed we didn't have the particular parcel in the PowerPoint, so it might be helpful to bring up the Pasco mapper, yeah, because they're going to speak to it. I think that's what they're going to talk to you about is Dawson Creek Lane. That is where we're seeking an increase in entitlements. That's within parcel JL, MPUD parcel JL, where we're seeking 4 additional units to put on a vacant parcel on Dawson Creek Lane. We made sure that I noticed each one of them and put a sign on this vacant parcel, so I know they have questions. I've offered to meet with them outside of this meeting as well with the client to go over any questions they may have and certainly answer their questions here that they may bring forward. So with that introduction, so that you can see where this is when they're speaking to you, and have staff bring that up, and for me to briefly introduce it, I'm going to sit down and listen to their comments because I haven't heard them yet, and then we'll help address them afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, so it's that little vacant parcel there on the northeast,
Yes.
yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
following individual has pre-registered to speak, Ms. Catherine Knight.
Yes, if you give us your name and address, please.
Catherine Knight, 7602 Dawson Creek Lane.
Okay.
I'm here to represent our HOA today, and we were just concerned about the addition of the building. I think I have a better understanding after listening to PC5 about what entitlements are. That was my main question, increasing residential entitlements on parcel JA, which is Dawson Creek Lane. So what were they previously, and did they change? And they're looking to change something back right now? And the other thing was to explain recommendation for approval with conditions. So we have concerns about the area itself, the location of it, drainage for our street, the idea that our street will be used for heavy equipment to build another unit, and what kind of insurance do we have about the builders maintaining the integrity of our streets and our swift mud drainage in relationship to swift mud and to the present buildings already there.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's planning department, but I think it's probably the builder that we have to discuss most of these items with.
Well, what we'll do is, once we get through the questions from whoever needs to speak today, the applicant will come back up and try to answer all these questions that you're
Okay,
asking.
so I have some questions. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they'll know what they are.
Okay. Main thing is our street, because we are responsible for the maintenance of our street. So we want to know if they do put up a bond to protect themselves and us in case of damage to the street. The drainage on the property, the height of that lot where they want to build in relation to the existing building next to it. Does that building need an entirely new drainage system to protect the existing building? Impact on damage in regards to our swift mud, because the hurricanes flooded that area in question last fall. And just the impact. And other things are minor, like if they put the building up and when they do, mailboxes, do we lose the 2 extra parking spots on the street now next to the mailboxes because of this building? And those are my main questions.
Okay, we'll see if we can get them answered for you.
Okay, thank you.
Who would be next?
Mr. Chair, we do not have more individuals pre-registered to speak.
Pardon me?
We do not have.
Nobody else pre-registered, okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak that hasn't registered? This is your chance to speak if you have anything to say. Okay, I don't think I see any hands. So, Barbara, would you like to come?
Everybody in earlier?
Yeah,
I must have just missed it.
pass the Prevagen.
Barbara Wilhite again, for the record. I'm going to bring my client up, Tracy Shull, so he can answer the questions. He's going to develop this. These aren't really rezoning questions, so he's going to need to answer them. And again, I encourage them to meet to go over all these details. So.
All right, very good.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Tracy Shull, 7806 Province Lane, River Ridge area.
Okay, Tracy, have you been sworn?
Okay, so
Has he? Okay.
I did raise my right hand, sir. So let's see, I'm going to try to chicken scratch this down to the best of my ability. So we would be a part of the HOA. I understand there was also a question about the size.
You're gonna have to look forward. Trace,
Sorry.
because we're not trying to record it, that's all.
So we'll go, we suggested a quadplex, but it may be a tri. We don't know yet till we lay that out. Second thing, the builder will have bond insurance. As far as damage to the roads and everything, we would be 100% responsible for that, fixing the roads, also coming through the gate, because there would be a main thoroughfare through the back gate there going into Edgewater. So yes, of course, we would be responsible for that. As far as the height, the impact, and the drainage, through engineering and the planning, we will resolve those questions. So it's
Okay.
best I can do there.
All right, since you were the only speaker, do you have any follow-up? Do you have anything that you didn't get answered?
No, but I appreciate that information. There is an easement.
We're going to need your name and
Oh,
address again.
Catherine Knight, 7602 Dawson Creek Lane. There is an easement on some of that property from the street to the number 10, because we are on the golf course, the number 10 hole, even though the golf course is not being used right now. Is that going to be impacted? How would, if any other future development would want to be on that golf course, how would they access that? If that easement, is that easement still in place?
That's your final question?
Yes.
Okay. Tracy, would you state your name and then again, so we know who you are speaking?
Tracy Scholl, 7806 Providence Lane. The golf course, we will not do any future development, especially on number 10, since that rests behind Edgewater. We'd probably do something as far as beautifying that for the community of Edgewater right back there. So there wouldn't be any access needed through number 10, going back to 11, 12, 13. 11, 12, 13 pretty much flood in the last 3 hurricanes. So we're still trying to decide what to do with the back 9, but as far as the back 9 being a future golf course, no plans to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. If you have any other questions, let me know.
Any questions from up here?
I have a question.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, I just want to talk about that K3.
K3, yeah.
Yeah, because I was looking, can you put the aerial up a little bit better? Because I'm looking at the parcel, and I'm looking at the wetlands, you take that all out, there, and then I'm looking at that Publix next door, and I'm just wondering, do you need all that square footage? And it just seems like a lot, but I don't know. Yeah, right
Well,
there.
we've only been working on trying to get K3 more entitlements since 2022, so the answer is yes.
Okay. Because the Publix, like, it's 40,000 square feet.
Different, yeah, different,
Yeah.
but yes,
Okay.
thank you.
You okay, Richard?
Yep.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries, and
And
show
again,
that Jamie
I did not vote.
abstained. All right.
Workshop time.
You're in charge.
Mr. Chair, that's the end of our regular items. The last item on our agenda today is a Pasco 2050 Comprehensive Plan Update Workshop, PDE 250287, to be presented by staff.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, we
Yes.
request that we have a 10-minute recess.
Excellent.
Good afternoon, Hyatt Mazzilli, Plan Development Economic Growth.
She doesn't want to give me a
I just want
recess.
to say that we just need to set up, so we just need a little recess, like 10
Yeah.
minutes, and then we'll come back.
Perfect.
everywhere for youth. See how we can heal the world with the message.
I feel very bad for children
it's just-
today
That can
that
be
are
so
going to grow up
misused.
with AI.
Absolutely. Well, the governor did sign that bill, that if any crap is up, it has to come down within 48 hours.
I just haven't heard from
Like
them.
when they
looking at this
post
thing.
the AI images that are like something that's had on someone else's body kind of bullshit, some woman, lots of men, children, have gone through living hell and having this stuff posted online. So the governor signed the bill maybe 2 weeks ago.
I got him bill him
That
enough.
we've got
He was like,
companies
come kill that,
48
get out of
hours to
there.
download the
That's what it was.
But even just the technology itself, like I had to call Verizon,
Hey,
there's a problem with my bill.
Hey, guys, over here on this side.
You have to deal with artificial
Yes.
intelligence.
I
And
called
it
a
tells
life
you it's
insurance.
artificial
Yes, I called a life insurance company today.
It does, and it not, it's just going to do whatever it wants. You cannot go.
You can't get to a human. You can even say talk to a human. And you can't talk to a human. And so this is an AI.
Is the mic on?
I wanted to
Yeah, it is.
see my actual life insurance contract. I asked for it once before and got a summary sheet in the mail yesterday. So what did they say? What did the AI person told me? Oh, emailing a summary sheet to you. No, I want the friggin' contract.
I don't want to put words
So
in
now
your
I still
mouth.
don't have it.
Not a summary.
And,
So it's like, what do you
so
think?
if you guys want to
Since my uncle died back in April.
talk about it.
Didn't we give staff direction?
Huh?
Didn't
Well,
we
they
give staff
call,
direction and they're coming back to us?
yeah, but they call David, and David sent an email.
That's what I deal with every day in my line of work.
Really? What do you do?
Financial planner.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize
Know
that.
what the county was gonna do.
So anyhow,
So-
yeah,
What are you talking
And
about?
who is this?
annuities, I got a
Public
house,
information.
I got a mortgage on it, I got a life insurance policy, I've got 2 checking accounts in Virginia.
PIO, they
If
call
you didn't label properly and did not
And,
name a death beneficiary,
haven't seen any
I
of
have to
these guys
probate
yet.
it in Virginia in person.
Anyway,
Bill.
give me, let me know so I
And I have to get a
respond
bond.
back to them.
I have to get a bond, and it's all because.
Is there enough in the accounts that's worth it?
$662 over the minimum of 25,000, or the maximum of 25,000. I know, isn't that BS?
Y'all ready?
Absolute BS.
Is there any automatic bills coming out of it?
That stopped because they had.
You all ready to go?
I think I know you.
Let's go.
Thank you.
I was hoping that would happen too, but no, I didn't attend to it before I knew that existed.
I'm going to
Okay.
call it back to order.
Okay, let's,
Can't win.
Good afternoon.
To order.
My name is David Engel. I am the Director of Planning and Economic Development for Pasco County, and it's my privilege today to introduce our Pasco 2050 Comp Plan Rewrite Workshop with the Planning Commission. It's been a very collaborative effort. We've started a while back. We've met with internal and external stakeholders. We have our consultant here today that's been working with us side by side to get through this process. And it's been a very good process. We've had interaction with our board, and, informal discussions. We've met with our constitutionals. We've conducted multiple and many engagements with the development community and all other interested party over the course of the last months. We started about a year ago. So today is the culmination of that effort to provide some information for the Planning Commission and get your feedback. And at this juncture, I'd like to present Hyatt Mazzilli. She's our senior planner and internal lead for our comp plan rewrite. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Hyatt Mazzilli, Planning, Development, and Economic Growth. Thank you for the opportunity to engage with us today. We'll take a quick look at our agenda for this afternoon. So we'll start off with an overview of the comprehensive plan update, what it is and why it is important. Then we'll walk through the scope of the project, and then we will get to the heart of the presentation, which is, or the proposed changes to the Pasco 2050 plan, and we'll wrap up with mapping the future. And this section of the presentation will pretty much introduce you to the future land use categories that we've been working on, as well as the future land use map. Okay, so by now, I think everybody knows that Pasco 2050 is a local celebrity. Everybody knows about it, but I'd like to reintroduce it just as a refresher for the Planning Commission and also for anybody who may be joining us for the first time. So Pasco 2050 is a major update to the county's existing comprehensive plan. The existing comprehensive plan was adopted in 1989, and it was last updated in 2006. So clearly, it's time for a refresh. And as a refresher, the comprehensive plan is a long-range planning document that local governments use to manage growth and development. We update it every 7 years, And we do update because we are required by Florida statutes to do so. And also, communities need to address the changing needs as populations grow and expand and obviously shift. So it's important to manage this population growth effectively. And we also update because we want to expand our opportunities for the residents as well as improve our planning tools so we are more proactive than reactive, and also we're more forward-thinking. So the comprehensive plan also, this is a very important part of the comprehensive plan, it outlines a vision for the future. And this vision is translated into goals, objectives, and policies. And these policies cover multiple areas, such as land use, transportation, parks, recreation, public infrastructure, and conservation. So it is important to ensure that the vision is implemented throughout these topics. Now, let's walk through the scope of the Pasco 2050. I just wanted to provide you with a little overview of what we've been doing in the last 2 years. So in 2023, we completed the visioning stage of the update, which was all about community engagement and public participation. This phase is very important because we needed to get input from the community. We wanted to understand what their concerns are and also what their aspirations are for the future of Pasco in the next 25 years and beyond. Oh, and the summary of the public engagement and participation effort is laid out in our vision plan, which is Envision Pasco 2050, which also identified the shared community vision. We had brought this, this document before you back in October of 2023. In 2024, we took everything that we learned from the public during the visioning stage, and we started rewriting the policies of the comprehensive plan. We crafted new ones, and we also created land use structures or strategies to ensure that the community's vision is implemented and also their priorities and needs are met. Now, we are in 2025, which is the adoption year of the comprehensive plan. We are finalizing the drafts of the plan, and ultimately, we will adopt by the end of this year. This slide shows the step-by-step adventure of the Pasco 2050. We are on the last rungs of the ladder as we are finalizing the goals, objectives, and policies, and also finalizing the future land use map series. Like I mentioned, we will transmit the plan to Florida Commerce and adopt it by the end of the year, so by December 2025. Another important step that we're taking this year is actually next month we will start our Summer of Engagement. We call it 2.0, Summer of Engagement 2.0. And that's when we're going to be hosting open houses across the county to reveal the plan to the public so they can see what we have changed and also give them an opportunity to engage with us, ask questions, and provide feedback. Now that we have warmed up with a little bit of background information, let's get to the good stuff, and that's the proposed changes to the Pasco 2050. So I'll turn it over to Chris Dory, who will dive a little bit deeper into these proposed changes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the moment everybody's been waiting for.
Drum roll. Drum roll.
Yes, where's the drum roll? We didn't add that sound effect to the PowerPoint. It is my pleasure to unveil the new chapters of Pasco County's comprehensive plan. Before I do that, I just wanted to recognize all the collaborators that David had mentioned, all the county departments that participated in this. What a tremendous opportunity it was to hear all of the subject matter experts on the different topics that are found in the plan. Truly a wonderful experience. The land use roundtable and all of their expertise has been tremendous. The county attorney's office taking it every step of the way with us and telling us all the good and bad things we were doing. Commissioner Moody, thank you. Invaluable comments on several topics. The school board had numerous meetings and discussing how the schools interacts with the growth and policies of the plan. And then all your excellent planners that you have here at Pasco County. So wonderful folks to work with. So before I get into the next slide, I wanted to mention that what you're going to find in the comprehensive plan is going to be a strike-through and underlined document. We did not completely throw out the old plan. We kept all the good parts, but we updated those outdated parts. And as Terry will talk about, and as Hyatt has alluded to, incorporating best practices into the comprehensive plan and really highlighting the vision and the priorities of the community. So without further ado, these are your new chapters. What we did was we took the 14 elements that currently comprise of the comprehensive plan and integrated those into 11 new chapters. And those chapters really address the vision, and that's why we named them Pasco Grows, or Pasco Moves, Pasco Lives. We're going to go through each one of those, so we don't have to dig into these just yet, but we do want to make sure that you all know that we did incorporate all of the required elements of the comprehensive plan into each one of these chapters, and you'll see that underneath the title of each chapter. You'll see future land use, or property rights, or transportation, or housing, and so forth. Some of the changes you'll see, we streamlined a lot of these plans. Over time, as you make incremental changes to the comprehensive plan, sometimes the intent and purpose gets a little lost, and it's a little hard to manage where these certain topic areas end up. We fixed that. We reorganized some of those chapters and made sure that it flowed a little bit better. Made sure we were statute compliant. So you saw peril of flood amendments not too long ago. That's what we're doing. We're making sure that the other changes since 2023 and so forth are incorporated in the plan. And then updating references to the Florida Administrative Code, the Florida statutes, and so forth. So let's jump into the chapters. So the first chapter is Pasco Grows. That includes future land use and property rights. This is the big one. A lot of changes. So I don't want to steal Terry's thunder because he has a wonderful presentation to go through the new future land use scheme. But we are creating new mixed-use nodes, and that is really addressing the need for new walkable communities. We're creating a new suburban density residential category that provides a tiered approach to density, because that's really the largest category on the map by sheer size, and really focus on form and design within those tiers. And then another really key change here is we took out the special plans or districts and created specializes, pardon me. No real major changes here. This is taking villages of Pasadena Hills, Connected City, CEPV, Gateway Hub, Project Arthur, Connerton, Newtown, putting those in a specific chapter because some of those already kind of function as their own comprehensive plans. So we felt like it was important to really highlight those in another chapter of their own. The only really change that you'll see is that we recognize that there's legacy flues that are identified in the VOPH plan, and we're just changing the names, keeping the same densities, but changing the names. Okay, for transportation, that now becomes Pasco Moves. There was a lot of old stuff in Pasco Moves. We just wanted to update those, make it, really turn the transportation system into more of a 21st century modes. looking at stronger partnerships, an active transportation plan. And I know some of these are all new terms. That's another thing that we did. We had to create some new definitions. So as you start to look through the updated chapters, you'll see new glossary terms that we're proposing. Prioritizing beautification on the streets and safe streets for all. Again, going back to the need for walkable communities and those mixed-use nodes and providing for all modes of transportation. In housing, that's now Pasco Lives. This is probably the chapter that had the most attention, probably at the beginning of the year and towards the end of last year. We had a USF study going on, the inclusionary zoning ordinance study, and several other initiatives. Really, this is just highlighting all of that really good work that was going on and really pushing it forward. So we're looking at adjusting residential densities, providing for additional missing middle housing, that housing type between single-family detached and apartments to really provide a greater supply for more affordability, providing incentives for affordable housing, and continuing the good work that community development does with providing for funds for substandard housing and aging housing stock. And then public facilities, that's now Pasco Serves. Not a lot of changes here, but again, making sure that we're advancing specific items related to wastewater treatment, identifying, alternative water supply, new conservation measures, as well as incorporating, we talked about the statute changes incorporating the septic to sewer requirements that all sewer providers have to do now. So again, not a lot of changes, but making sure that we're keeping up with growth and infrastructure. And I believe this is my last element I get to tell you about, but this is Pasco Adapts, which is your coastal management element. Really, this is all about resiliency, and so that's how we treat it. We brought in a brand new goal, which is going to be implementing the resilience and sustainability action plan, and making sure that we're addressing climate risks and promoting the resilient living shorelines plan and program. So that's now housed in Pasco Adapts. And now I'll turn it over to Hyatt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. All right, from Adapt to Plays. So Plays is now the updated Parks, Recreation, and Open Space element. This chapter was revised in a close and extensive coordination with County Attorney's Office, thank you, Elizabeth, and also with the Parks Department to ensure that our goals, objectives, and policies align with the Parks Master Plan's goals and initiatives. So what changed in this chapter? We have done a lot of reorganization and reformatting of the policies to improve readability and clarity. We removed policies that were duplicative or outdated, and we pretty much simplified the language throughout the document to ensure the document is more accessible. We also introduced new policies that support the goals of the master plan or the Parks Master Plan, and also added policies to enhance access to neighborhood parks to strengthen the community's identity and, of course, promote healthier lifestyle. Additional policies to this chapter focus on developing a well-connected system of greenways, trails, and blueways, and this includes identifying 5 greenway corridor opportunity zones, which can serve as the foundation for future trails and also ecological connections. We also added a couple policies to expand recreational programming and also address the park deficits in urbanized areas. Next is Pasco Conserves. So Pasco Conserves is now the conservation element, and just like Pasco Plays, this chapter was also revised in close coordination with the Natural Resources Department and other key stakeholders to ensure consistency and alignment with current practices and regulations. Updates to this chapter include removal of policies that are outdated or already addressed through the LDC, and other changes include recommendations from the Habitat Study, which was updated in 2023, and includes ecological planning units and the agricultural reserves or reserve to ensure open space protections. We have also simplified the wetland category definitions and clarified policy language about wetland impacts, which is already implemented or which is already included in the LDC. We also added a new policy for tree preservation and management and another policy for the reduction of nutrient loads in surface water. Pasco Partners is now the intergovernmental coordination and public school facilities element. This chapter is all about coordinating with our local, with our municipalities, local agencies, other state agencies, and also the school board to ensure that we're all growing in the same direction, strategically, smartly, and of course, sustainably. Updates to this chapter include combining the intergovernmental coordination and the public school facility, so two elements into one chapter, and this means less duplication and more clarity. We haven't really done much or added any new policies here other than a major update to the language of the policies just to reflect the current regulations and of course the practices. We also outlined who is involved and what happens if there is a disagreement or a dispute, because just like in a long-term loving marriage, divorce is not an option. And we need a solid plan to resolve our issues and have a strong partnership. Pasco Works is the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. This chapter reflects our renewed commitment to building a strong, diverse, and resilient local economy. We have reorganized and reformatted the goals, objectives, and policies again to improve clarity and readability. We refined the definition of target industries or businesses and added policies focused on both the recruitment of new businesses and also the retention of existing businesses. These businesses are important because they contribute to our local economy and the strength of our economic base. Additional policies in this chapter include policies that promote strategic investment in infrastructure to support business growth, as well as policies that offer incentives and reduce barriers to encourage economic development. We also added policies that support workforce development through partnerships with educational institutions and other industries. And finally, Pasco Works now has policies to market Pasco not only as a business destination, but also as a vibrant and tourist destination. So we worked closely with the Florida Sports Coast to actually develop those new policies. I'm almost done, I promise. Pasco Invest is the capital improvement element of the comprehensive plan. And this chapter is pretty much to ensure that our county can deliver the necessary public infrastructure in a financially responsible manner. What changed in this chapter, like the other chapters, we've streamlined and reorganized the goals, objectives, and policies for greater clarity and effectiveness. We relocated policies from the administrative element to this chapter, and we've rounded up all the level service standards from other chapters into this chapter, so everything is under one umbrella and one hub, so no more scavenger hunts for the LOSs. We also removed some projects from the capital improvement project list that either have already been accomplished or they don't make sense anymore. And we also removed the financial feasibility requirement, which is no longer mandated by the state. And I'm done. I will hand it over to Terry, who will be actually presenting a very compelling presentation about mapping the future for Pasco County.
All right. All right, Terry, it's going to be very compelling.
No pressure.
Hopefully I don't drone on. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission members, or local planning agency members. Nectarios Pitos, Planning Development, Economic Growth. One of the stated goals of the comprehensive plan update when it first began was to figure out a way to streamline the process, figure out a way how to establish more local control through the comprehensive plan, simplify the future land use program in the comprehensive plan, and also to add value to property owners. And so this is what we've done. We've worked pretty diligently here for the last couple of years, trying to understand how we might be able to streamline the process. Currently, we bring amendments to the comprehensive plan forward fairly regularly, and they're often accompanied by a companion zoning item. Just to run a comprehensive plan amendment review process takes many months. It could take anywhere between 8 to 10 months just to do the comprehensive plan amendment review process. Following that up with anywhere between 3 to 8 months on the zoning side, whether that's Euclidean or MPUD, it adds quite a bit of time, both to applicants, but also to the local government in terms of staff review time that's taking place. We want to be able to try to create a comprehensive plan that uses local government resources more wisely, more in tune with the financial responsibilities of the government. Additionally, and so that's what we've set out to do, and I'll explain a little bit of the consolidations in the future land use categories where we've attempted this streamlining. Additionally, we wanted to establish a little bit more control. Like I said, we want to be able to create scenarios where our planning is more context sensitive in the solutions that we're applying. So we want to take what's on the ground into more consideration versus, let's say, the colors on a map. And I'll walk through that when we get to that point in the presentation here. The simplification of the future land use categories is accomplished through the consolidation of a few of the categories that we have today. I'll walk you all through that as well. And as I stated at the beginning here, as we move through and create these new future land use categories, we wanted to make sure that we were never in a position in which we were taking from property owners the ability to use their land, but rather to add value to the property owners. So in this consolidation and this streamlining, in this more context-sensitive approach, we're trying to add value to the property owners and make Pasco 2050 a very good plan for the county going forward the next 20 years. On the overhead screen, you'll see a very familiar site. This is the current future land use map. That is to say, the existing map that we use to do our comprehensive plan amendments. And what you'll notice on this screen is the number of future land use categories that are on display at the top left in the legend, and the various colors and hatchings that are taking place across the map. One of the key colorations, or two key colorations that I just want to draw your attention to, is obviously colors that are in green, and then colors that are in a beige or orange color, depending on how you see colors. The green colors are going to illustrate areas that, the deep green is going to illustrate areas that are under preserve, right? So these are our big open spaces, Starkey Wilderness Park, for example, the various well fields up here, the green swamp. The lighter green colors, Swift Mud territories out here, the lighter green colors are going to illustrate agricultural areas, right? Particularly in the northern and eastern part of the county. The beige or cream color, if you will, is going to be all of this that you see on the map. These are this is an area of the county that's typically described by Res 3, Res 6, Res 9, Res 12, future land use categories. Res 24 is in there too, but there's not a lot of Res 24. That comprises the vast majority of the county, right? So when we move over to the proposed, or what I call right now the translation map, you'll notice that the future land use categories change a little bit, and we'll walk through each one, and I'll talk about what's being consolidated into what, and then we'll back and forth with it. We'll go back and forth with this map to kind of illustrate what's happening on the map as we learn about these future land use categories. But you'll notice, again, two specific colors, the green color, so all of the preserved areas remain preserved in Pasco 2050. There's a consolidation that takes place of the agricultural lands in the northeast part of Pasco County. And there's also a type of consolidation that takes place throughout the county as it relates to that yellow color, which we'll talk about in more detail in a little bit. One of the things that drives our comprehensive plan today is Exhibit 2-2. Exhibit 2-2 is simply illustrating what kind of future land use categories are compatible with other types of future land use categories. And so you'll read the chart here, and it'll say things like, really hard to see from here. My glasses won't work. It'll say things like Res 3 is compatible to Res 1, and so there's an X mark. Everywhere you see an X is compatibility. Everywhere that you see a plus, you can do a little bit more design to make it more compatible. And so what this chart is doing is it's relating a map category to a map category. One of the things that you'll notice on the existing future land use map is that it's telling us that Res 3 or Res 6 or Res 9 is located in a particular location. When we go out into the field and we visit that site, a lot of times it's not at that level. It's not sitting at 6. If you calculate the actual density, the project came in at 3.8 or 4.6, something much lower. And over the years, you've all heard the presentations that take place. Somebody's coming in, oh, we just want to do 3.2 dwelling units per gross acre, but there's a gap in the way we organize our density. And so they have to climb all the way up to Res 6 just to do 3.2, right? Or they have to go to Res 9 just to do 7.6 dwelling unit per gross acre townhome development. And so what our map is showing is not actually what's on the ground and what's actually getting built often. And so that is a little bit of a challenge, because now when a new project comes in and says, oh, we'd like to be, 6.6 dwelling units per gross acre, we're building townhomes, whatever, they got to jump all the way up to Res 9. And the chart here tells us, oh, well, Res 9 is compatible next to a Res 6, or it's compatible next to a Res 3, even if that Res 6 is just a bunch of single-family homes that are sitting at 3 dwelling units per gross acre, or maybe even less than that. Sometimes there's still a rural zoning district under that flue. And so what we want to be able to do is have more contextually sensitive decision-making when we're thinking about density, so that when we consider the townhouse development that's 6.6 dwelling units per gross acre, we're also considering who the actual neighbors are versus what their color is on the map. And so this is an exhibit that's not going to continue in Pasco 2050. There's going to be a different table associated with regard to the compatibility of future land use categories. So let me grab my notes. So I scrolled through the maps. We'll revisit the maps. Those are all the different map designations or map categories that we have for Pasco 2050. We can look at each one of them if anybody has any particular interest. The vision roadmap essentially is very familiar and very similar to the one we have today. But the thrust, or the main thrust of this presentation is going to be an explanation on the actual future land use categories themselves. It's kind of hard to see from the podium, So one of the first things that we're going to notice here is that we've consolidated our current AG agricultural and our current AGR agricultural rural future land use category into the one and new AGR agricultural rural future land use category. Previously, we have our agricultural flues divided into two. The main difference between the two is that AG is sitting at 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres, and AGR is sitting at 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. If we look at the existing future land use map, these future land use categories are basically one next to the other, and they're continuously compatible one with the other, depending on what, well, actually, it doesn't depend. It's whether you're in the RTA, the rural transition area, or Northeast rural, they're interchangeable in many respects. Obviously, when you're actually driving around in the county, you never really realize when you're entering or exiting an AGR versus an AG future land use. So we've consolidated these two future land use categories into the single AGR flu with a dwelling or density range of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres up to 1 dwelling unit per 3.5 gross acres. So that amounts to a 0.1 to 0.29 density range in the agricultural future land use category. After that, after the AGR and AGR flus, we had Res 1 we have Res 1 today in our current comprehensive plan. Wherever there was Res 1 in the existing comprehensive plan future land use map, that is currently being updated in Pasco 2050 to be RDR, rural density residential. Rural density residential picks up where AGR left off, so it starts at 0.3, basically 1 dwelling unit per 3.5 acres, and it climbs up to 2.9 dwelling units per gross acre. So if we scroll back to this map, RDR is the brown areas on the map. So this part of the county is RDR. Over here on the west side, this area here is RDR. We have some RDRs in the central part of the county, quite a bit of RDR in the northeast rural area, and then also between Dade City and Zephyr Hills. One of the key things in our current comprehensive plan that's not changing in Pasco 2050 is the policy to require utility connections at 3 dwelling units per gross acre. So that's staying the same. So we're making a cut here and saying everything under 3, well, we're already saying this, everything under 3 does not need to connect to utilities, but if you are between 1 and 3 dwelling units per gross acre, you have a choice to connect to utilities if that's available. And so we're maintaining this distinction, and we're bringing the distinction into sharper focus in Pasco 2050 by delineating the density range for RDR between 0.3 and 2.9. In our current comprehensive plan, we struggle with that delineation because Res 1 allows up to 1 dwelling unit per gross acre. Then there's a gap. Then begins Res 3. So if somebody, again, wanted to do just 2.2 and not have to connect to utilities and essentially retain a more rural approach to their development, they have to upgrade their future land use category to 3 dwelling units per gross acre, which again overshoots just to get the lower density that they're looking for. In Pasco 2050, like I said, we're expanding this in order to enable more rural type density within the county than is currently available, and to maintain our utility service policies. A key distinction, however, because now we're talking about exceeding 1, going to 2.9, is going to be in the northeast rural area. In northeast rural, where we have these RDRs, there are policies in Pasco 2050 that are going to cap RDR at 1. So if you're RDR in northeast rural, today you are a Res 1. Res 1 is the maximum density you can have in northeast rural. We will carry through with that maximum density of 1 dwelling unit per gross acre in northeast rural. And so if you are Res 1 today, you will be RDR tomorrow. RDR will be 1. You're not losing anything. And we're not increasing the density as a consequence in northeast rural. Continuing down the list, where RDR leaves off is where SDR, suburban density residential, picks up. So the suburban density residential range is 3 to 17.9 dwelling units per gross acre. It's a very large range. It encompasses our current Res 3, 6, 9, and 12 categories. So it captures all of those, bundles them up into what's known as a suburban density residential future land use. Res 3, 6, 9, and 12 are all suburban densities. Whichever way you want to cut it, industry-wide, nationwide, these are suburban type densities. And so we've put them together all into the SDR. When you look at the map and you see that SDR is this yellow color, and you realize that quite a bit of land and territory in the county is all yellow, an immediate thought comes to mind, are we really saying that we're going to allow 17.9 dwelling units per gross acre on every single property in the yellow color across the county? The answer is no. We're not going to do that. SDR is divided in Pasco 2050 into 3 tiers, which are going to control the design of a project such that it produces the context-sensitive solution that will match the surrounding environment. So what I mean by this is that Tier 1 is going to be 3 to 5.9 dwelling units per gross acre. Tier 2 will be 6 to 11.9. Tier 3 will be 12 to 17.9. The Pasco 2050 plan establishes design criteria to mitigate the relationship between a new development and the surrounding built environment, so that if you are in SDR and you're a new project, let's say you're a townhome development coming in at 8, and your neighboring development is a bunch of single-family homes, their actual density, let's say, is 4.3 dwelling units per gross acre, and you're coming in at 8. You're going to have to follow the Tier 2 design requirements to be able to situate yourself next to a Tier 1 density in SDR. So there are tables that are going to be in the SDR future land use that are going to say Tier 1 to Tier 1 has to follow this criteria, Tier 1 to 2 has to follow this criteria, Tier 1 to 3 follows that criteria, 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 1, 3 to 2, 3 to 3. So you go through the whole matrix. What this allows us to do then is that we can consider density decisions locally. We don't have to amend the comprehensive plan to see if we want to change the density on the map. We can look at it from a zoning perspective. When we do the land development code update, we're going to be creating new zoning districts that are going to match the SDR future land use. And developers will have to come in and say, well, I'm this Tier 2 density, next to me is this Tier 1 and this Tier 3. In order to make sure that that new density fits, you have to mitigate to the Tier 1 on your, let's say it's on the west, you got to mitigate to the Tier 3 that's on your north, mitigate to the Tier 3 on your north, and so you create this context-sensitive design that fits within the existing context. If you can't do that, then there's reason for potential denial of a zoning amendment and the increase in density, because that density just doesn't fit next to what's already out on the ground, basically. So that's the context and the approach and strategy behind SDR to create more context-sensitive design. The other piece of the puzzle at SDR is that by increasing the ranges on the density here, we're sort of getting out of our own way, because currently in our comprehensive plan, for example, in Res 3, we have policies that create barriers for the application of things like duplexes and triplexes within our suburban density tier or classifications. By removing these things, we're then enabling what's known as gentle density, or sometimes referred to as missing middle housing, where we're able to introduce new types of housing product that's not just your traditional single-family detached townhome and garden-style apartment, but you could put duplexes, triplexes, courtyard apartments, whatever that range of new housing product is. And this will help address a lot of the housing challenges that we are experiencing. One last important thing about SDR, or actually 2 important things about SDR, is that you'll notice that there's a lot of SDR around Dade City and around Zephyr Hills. Newport Richey and Port Richey are kind of different. This is a far more urbanized setting along the coast. But around Zephyr Hills and Dade City, you have a bit more rural character in the area. And so we are working with the 2 cities to establish caps on the immediate boundaries of the cities, so that SDR never climbs higher than the highest density that the city allows. So you don't have this awkward maximum density within the city and then in the unincorporated parts of the county, the density even goes higher, but rather it stays proportionate to what the cities allow. The other important thing is that there are some SDRs today, there would be today, some SDRs in Northeast Rural. These guys are basically all sitting at Res 6. Around this middle part of the 301 corridor here, they're sitting at about Res 6. These guys up in the Lakuchi area, I don't know where my pointer went, but they're all sitting around Res 3. So there will be policies in the comprehensive plan to cap the SDR density, just like we talked about in RDR, at 6 for the areas that are sort of midpoint, and at 3 around the Lakuchi area, greater Lakuchi area. Again, recognizing that this is the Northeast Rural area, we should try to keep density down. We could take the approach of downfluing those properties that are in Northeast Rural. But again, the spirit of the update has been to add value to properties. And so if they are Res 6 today, that's what they're allowed to do today. They should be able to stay at that level and maintain status quo for their properties.
Terry, how do you deal with variances that might come up with this? Like, for example, I noticed one with the AGR. So it has a minimum of 1 unit per 10 acres. So what if someone wants to buy a 40-acre parcel and put a farmhouse on it? That's less than 1 unit per.
I think we would allow that. That's probably just because of the way that we've written it right now.
Okay.
All these categories are under constant revision. So we're highlighting that it was the beginning point was 1 to 10, but you could be lower in the rural area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just said a minimum. I noticed that.
I
It
see
said
what
a
you're saying.
minimum, so.
Moving along, the Res 24 was converted to UDR, Urban Density Residential. That's our new flu. So there's not a lot of Res 24 in the county. There's a number of locations along the US 19 corridor, and maybe a couple along the 54 or 56 area, State Road 54, 56. So there's not a lot of this out there. It was converted to UDR, Urban Density Residential. So this can only occur within the urban service area. This can't occur, UDR cannot occur in the central areas of the county, nor can it occur up here in the northern parts of the county. But in the urban concentration areas, which I'm roughly outlining with my cursor here, you could potentially find UDR, Urban Density Residential. That range picks up from where SDR leaves off. So SDR leaves off at 17.9, this picks up at 18 and climbs all the way to 64. 64 actually is the highest density currently allowed by our comprehensive plan. It's in the current comp plan anyway. It was never activated, however, because it was associated with transit center overlays, which were never established. Nevertheless, if you are considering, let's say, infill development in Holiday or in Alfers or in some places in the southwestern part of the county, like down here, what you'll come across often is small lots that were originally developed for the purposes of single-family detached housing. Part of the whole concept behind gentle density and missing middle housing is to create an increase in density through the same form as a single-family home. So you're not creating large and tall buildings. You're basically putting 3 units or 4 units in a building that's about the same size as a single-family home. However, in order to do that on some of these smaller lots, you're going to be in a scenario in which your density is going to spike to something like in the 20s or 30s on a lot that's 60 to 100. So even though you may be adding 3 or 4 units on a property, it's going to spike. And so we're going to need, there's a potential need for a surgical future land use category that's going to help us establish missing middle housing in certain areas of the county. In other parts of the county, like along US 19, there's been a lot of talk over the years to increase the density on 19 so that we can have more population where there's existing infrastructure, and also more population to help build a bigger marketplace along the 19 corridor, basically, and feed those business areas. So those are the residential future land use classifications. Next, I'm going to walk us through real quick what we call the productive or business future land use classifications or categories. And I'm going to call our attention to the EC, Employment Center, Town Center, or TC, Town Center, Future Land Use, and MU, Mixed Use, Future Land Use of the current comprehensive plan. Those three categories are going to be combined and consolidated into a new future land use category called CEO, Commercial Employment Generating Office. Basically, CEO is EC optimized. It's basically plugging some of the holes that EC left behind and consolidating the strategies of the town center, mainly the way we measure acreage, the way we measure the percentages and the proportions of land use, the land use distribution mix, and measuring that according to acreage. That's the strategy that we're pulling from town center and bringing into the EC future land use. And mixed use. So one of the challenges that we came across was that MU, if you look at our current comprehensive plan, MU is essentially a free-for-all flu. There's no proportions in the flu like ROR or like EC. In ROR, it says 0 to 75% you have to be retail, 0 to 75% can be office, 0 to 75% is residential. How you measure that has been a very big challenge from the beginning of ROR. But nevertheless, there's this proportion. Same thing in EC. There's even this kind of proportionality in future land use categories like IL, where it says 15% of the future land use designation may be support commercial, right? So there's these prescriptions of land use that are taking place. In the MU flu, it just says you can do commercial, you can do industrial, you can do residential. So if you have MU on the map today, you basically can do anything. And there's no distribution mix identified. Few MU properties, there have been some MU properties that have developed, a few remain. What we've determined is that we should classify the MU because a lot of them carry an I1 zoning district. We should classify the MU with the CEO because CEO will continue to enable commercial, it'll continue to enable residential, it'll continue to enable industrial activity. It's just now with the prescription that every other future land use category has. And that prescription is generally going to stay the same. There is some discussion that maybe we should reverse the proportion of commercial or proportion of residential. We can say, right now the comp plan says up to 20% can be commercial and up to 40% can be residential in the EC. So there's some discussion happening right now that maybe we should flip that and say, cap the residential at 20% and allow the commercial to climb to 40% to be in keeping with the commercial and or employment generating goals of the county, economic development goals of the county. This is going to be a 32 dwelling unit per gross acre density if there's any residential built in it, which is what we have today on the books. And also, if you're in the urban service area, you can climb to as high as a 4.0 FAR. Importantly, within the EC flu, or excuse me, within the CEO flu, which is takes over from EC, we're considering allowing regional or interstate commercial activity within proximity to the interchanges. And we're also considering whenever you do residential in the CEO flu, if you do it on an arterial or a collector street, that ground floor needs to be commercial, but that commercial is an incentive. It's a bonus. It doesn't count against the 20% or the 40% limit that gets established. Moving on, so EC or CEO is going to be these purple areas on the map that you see here, or dark blue, depending on how you see color. So you'll see them located along the interstates, along major roadways. Here it's there's a little bit by the Suncoast here. So those are the areas that CEO will take over. And by virtue of leftover, there's not a lot of town center out there. And I don't even think I don't think it's on the map anymore. And then the MUs are also, some of the MUs that are left over are north of 52, north of Double Branch, in this area here. And then south of the airport, that's over on 75. Next is COM and ROR. These have been our general flagship commercial future land use categories within the county. There was so much ROR taking place in the county that's represented by this orange color here. You can't see it, but if we were to zoom in, the whole 19 quarter up to Port Richey, and then south of Port Richey all the way to the county line, all of that's ROR. It snakes down 54, it snakes down 52, it snakes up 41. There's a lot of ROR that's snaking along our corridors. At some point in 2006, in the 2006 update, ROR was turned off. You can still, if you're in ROR today, you still get the benefits of ROR, but no new ROR was established. COM came into existence in 2006, and accompanying COM came a set of policies that regulate how you can apply COM. What we're doing in Pasco 2050 is we're consolidating these. We're putting COM and ROR together, and we're creating a new future land use category called CORE, Commercial Office Residential. So COM plus ROR equals CORE. Very simple, straightforward. Pretty much everything stays the same between COM and ROR in CORE, with the difference that in COM, you can do residential at 24 dwelling units per gross acre, but it says anywhere you do residential in COM has to be ground floor commercial. Well, if you have a large site and you have a bunch of buildings in the back of the site, ground floor commercial is not going to really work out for you. And so that's been a bit of a challenge over the years. So what we're saying is that vertically integrated mixed use requirement should be focused on the main thoroughfares of a development, whether that's an arterial collector or an internal road. And then the back parts of the development, you can have residential on the first floor, where there's not going to be any kind of commercial activity. Moving on, we'll talk about IL, industrial light, and OF, office. These two uses have been consolidated into ORI, office research, light industrial, or / institutional. There's not a lot of office there is a lot of office uses in the county, but there's not a lot of OF designations on the map, and they're often limited at 10 acres or less. And so the thought was, well, most of our office development is locating and pursuing IL areas or EC areas. So let's just consolidate OF and IL and enable more areas for potential light industrial employment generating land uses. And that's basically what we've done. We've also continued with the 15% allowance for support commercial in the ORI, similar to what IL carries today, with the added distinction that vertically integrated mixed-use buildings with general commercial uses on the first floor and office or other ORI uses on the above floors are not limited by the 15%. So it's trying to maximize the capability of development to accomplish our economic development goals within the county. And then of the non-residential future land use categories we have left, IH, heavy industrial. This is a land use category that so ORI is basically, where is it? This light blue color, and you'll see it like in this area here along State Road, State Road 580 Suncoast, along the Suncoast, and in some of the other areas in the county, east of Zephyr Hills, so on and so forth. You have a question? No. With regard to IH, heavy industrial heavy, this is a land use category that the county has struggled with, property owners have struggled with. A lot of people are very concerned when IH hits the future land use map. There's not a lot of it on the existing map. It's this dark sort of color that you see on the peripheries of the county. There's a little bit here on State Road 54, I believe, down here. A lot of the heavy industrial activity that has come forward over the years in the county has come in under the PD plan development designation because we wanted to establish sub-area policies that try to mitigate the development of the heavy industrial use in relation to what's surrounding it. However, putting all of that employment generating and economically development important use under a PD flu hides it on the map. It can hide it from the public, but it can also hide it from prospective businesses and industries that want to move into the county potentially. And so the solution to IH is to upgrade IH in terms of the types of uses that we would allow. I'm going to use the word that I wasn't supposed to use before, but less dirty uses. But if you look at the IH use, you'd probably agree with the generalization. But less of those and an ability to establish sub-area policies as a matter of direction. So if you want to do a heavy industrial user, you're going to come in under the new future land use category called planned industrial. That way, prospective industries looking to come into the county see, there's a planned industrial site in the county. This is a potential site for me to go to. Neighboring property owners, whether they're residential or, well, there really shouldn't be any neighboring residential, but whether they are agricultural or whether they're commercial or what have you, they can rest at ease that their concerns can be addressed through sub-area policies established through the planned industrial development. Okay. Sure. Next on the list is going to be our mixed-use nodes. So these are called the mixed-use and transect centers, future land use categories. These are a new class of future land use that don't exist in the current comprehensive plan. These future land use categories punctuate our various corridors that crisscross the county according to population and according to the existence of infrastructure. So there's three of them. There's neighborhood corners, there's community squares, and there's urban centers. And these are basically the same kind of future land use, except that they're scaling up in intensity and density as you graduate from neighborhood corners, which is the least, then to the community squares, then up to the urban centers. So neighborhood corners basically sits at a density of 6 to 12 dwelling units per gross acre, community squares 12 to 18, and urban centers 19 to 64. We are working to try to identify ways in which we can influence affordable housing. The concept behind neighborhood corners, community squares, and urban centers was born out of what we heard in various community surveys that were done, that people wanted places to go to and visit, locations like what they visit in St. Petersburg or like what they visit in some parts of Hillsborough County or northern Pinellas County, a place where there's businesses and where people can live adjacent to them without having to necessarily get in their car and visit those places. Also, it was born out of an attempt to consolidate development and say, well, if we're going to put our highest, where are we going to put our high density, where are we going to put our highest intensity things in the county uses? We're going to try to locate them where we have existing infrastructure and create places. So it's a place-making activity. And then we also heard a lot from our fire and rescue and our police of the sheriff's office, where a lot of times they struggle with response to calls because they're traveling long distances to get to, wherever the call may be, often caused by suburban sprawl. And so one way that we can try to mitigate that is to locate density, locate intensity into smaller areas that they can respond to quickly, while at the same time creating places for people to live in and not have to get into their cars to go to different places. And then on top of that, like I said before, we're trying to establish affordable housing criteria that can be built into these nodes such that people who seek affordability can also live in a place where maybe they don't need a car, or multiple cars anyway, because cars affect affordability, car insurance, the gas, the maintenance, so on and so forth. It's not just an affordability factor with homes, but it's also the transportation aspect of it. So we set about and we created these nodes, and they punctuate the county. That's what these magenta and light red colors are around. And so they break up the various corridors. So the core doesn't span the entire length of 54, for example. It's broken up by these mixed-use nodes, by these placemaking nodes. And what we've done is most of the nodes in the northern part of the county are going to be neighborhood corners. So those are our lower density nodes because there's fewer people that live in the northern part of the county. In the middle part of the county, you're going to find a lot more of the community squares, the higher intensity version. And then along the State Road or US 19 corridor and at 41 and 54 is where you're going to find the urban centers. Urban centers cannot go anywhere else in the county except for in the urban concentration area. So those are the mixed-use nodes in short. Like I said, they're going to allow commercial, they're going to allow office, hotels. They'll allow compatible light manufacturing because that's kind of what ROR does today in many different areas. And they'll allow the residential. Importantly, in each of these mixed-use nodes, if residential is going to be on an arterial or on a collector, it's got to be vertically integrated with commercial on the ground floors in order to maintain the economic development potential of our corridors, even within mixed-use nodes. This helps to then establish the Main Street feel that a lot of these nodes should have out to 2050. So with that, I'm going to take a break on my voice here and let Hyatt kind of walk through some of the other adjustments that were that are contemplated in Pasco 2050.
Thank you, Terry.
Hi, Mazzilli, Planning Development and Economic Growth, and it's pop quiz time.
Pop quiz?
Pop quiz. Who have questions?
Okay.
About everything that Terry just talked about?
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
How many feet are in a mile?
How much does it cost to rent an apartment in New York City versus Pasco County?
It depends how many square footage, how many bedrooms.
Do you think the price of the car had much to do with it?
True. Good.
Okay.
David, were you going to say something?
No, I was just kidding around.
Okay.
He was going to tell us the apartment cost.
Oh, he was?
He knows about that.
I used to live in New York City.
Oh, that's why. Okay. All right, hi, I'm Mazzilli, Planning Development and Economic Growth. So thank you, Terry, for all those future land use categories descriptions. Now, a lot of the future land use categories remained and changed in this update, not because they were overlooked, but they are doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And namely, we are not touching conservation lands. We're not touching coastal lands. We're not touching ROS. ROS is a light green color, and that's recreation open space. And we're not touching public and semi-public future land use categories. Keeping them as is, not changed. Same thing with PDs. We're not touching PDs. We are gonna keep them as they are. They already have their sub-area policies, and they are unique and specific to different areas within the county. So they are staying put and remaining with their entitlements as they are. We also created, it's not shown on this map, but CPEV, Central Pasco Employment Village, is going to have its own FLU since it has its own sub-area policy. So CPEV will become a FLU and will not show as CEO over here with this purple color. Gateway Hub is already a FLU, Newtown is already a FLU, and NPC is already a future land use category, and they are gonna stay put, not change, remain the same. VOPH and Connected City are also remaining untouched. They have their own comprehensive plans, and we'll just be referring to the comprehensive plan of these two specific areas every single time we have something to change. Okay. Any questions so far? We don't want to just present to you in this presentation. We want to interact with you and allow you to ask questions. Yeah, that was all of them. I just want to move to the last slide. So, Pasco2050.com has the goals, objectives, and policies, as well as the data and analysis for each chapter that were presented to you. So we encourage you and, of course, our community to check our website periodically, because we will be updating more documents. If you want to review policy by policy, of course, we're available if you have any questions. This is not the end of the engagement with you and with the public. We still will have more opportunities to discuss any concerns or if you have any comments or additional inputs. Now,
Thank you, Hyatt. As this is a presentation, are there any questions from the dais?
Well,
Any
that's
questions?
the same one that I asked the other day when you and I spoke. If we're going to adopt a comprehensive plan by the end of the year, that is a drastic change in how we designate the future land use categories, that then requires subsequent land development code amendments to get zoning that is then compatible with these future land use categories. What are we doing in the interim? How are we going to deal with that?
Right now, we are preparing the scope for the Land Development Code update itself that will take place. A lot of because this is an optimization of future land use and not really a full-on change of future land use, the existing zoning code can move us forward. It has the ability. There would be some reliance, at least in the very beginning, with regard to MPUDs, right? So, for example, if you were in a mixed-use node, you wanted to do a development, the MPUD could be a vehicle that could carry you forward in the interim. Our existing zones, Euclidean zones, a C2, for example, still fits under a COR core. An IL, or excuse me, an I1 zoning district would still fit under the ORI. The Land Development Code update is basically going to do what the comprehensive plan update did to the comp plan. We're optimizing the flues here. In the Land Development Code update, we're going to be optimizing the zoning districts.
So explain that. So for instance, you've got your, what did you call it? Town square, corner, community corner. And how does C2 fit with that? I mean, C2 doesn't require somebody to do vertically integrated mixed use.
It does. It does require vertical integration if you're doing multifamily in the C2 as a conditional use permit. So it's possible.
The West Market area?
Yeah.
Really?
I believe so. I don't have my notes in front of me. Right. In the West Market area, allowed, or is affordable housing allowed? Everywhere else is conditional use. Yeah. But again, we have a vehicle in place that can carry us forward in the interim period, which would be the MPUD for the more complicated projects.
And talk about the IH for a minute. How are you thinking where you would locate IH?
Well, the IH would convert to planned industrial, and the policies that govern IH today would also govern planned industrial. The difference is that when we finally identified a site that can accommodate the planned industrial, that would have to be amended because there's not a lot of IH on the map today. And you would have to establish a sub-area policy to accompany that in order to relate to your surrounding, to the surrounding context.
Has there been an assessment of, we had a great case today. It was an example about what I'm about to ask. And the question is, has there been an assessment of the resources of the county? And the example I'm going to give is Mr. Hobby had a case today where we wanted a concrete batch plant next to a lime rock mine and sand mine, which I need both lime rock and I need sand to make concrete. And I think if you look through the United States, heavy industry is located where the resources are. That's the areas we need to be targeting for the IH. We need to look at what are the resources we have as the county. And, you know, unfortunately, maybe we're not as blessed with some of the natural resources as other places, but we do have some. And then we should think about how we will utilize those resources and allow the development of those resources. Not just I've been watching this for a long time, and I'm not saying anybody here's guilty of it. It's a problem that I see in land planning altogether. There's this theory in planning that if we draw colored squares on a map, that's where things will go. We ignore the natural development processes of cities and towns and communities. They don't just happen because somebody drew them on a map, other than in Washington, D.C., which is and Canberra, Australia, which are completely planned cities. But they're centers of government. Every other city is located where it is, not by accident, but by the resources which were around it. New York City is where New York City is because of New York Harbor. Boston is where Boston is because of Boston Harbor, and that's why Tampa and St. Peter where they are. And Newport Richey is where it is. That doesn't happen by accident. I think that's what we have to do when we develop a land use plan, is we have to look at what are the things that affect growth. I always remember when I was a kid, 54 was a 2-lane road through a lot of cow pastures from one end of this county to the other. And ultimately, as 54 got widened to the 4 and 6 lanes that it is, we all got told, we will never allow State Road 54 to become like US 19. Well, what have we got? Looks like US 19. Well, I actually don't find that to be a surprise. You got to have a road to go on to get to a store. You got to have a road to go on to get to a neighborhood, so things are going to grow along our transportation corridor. We have to recognize what are our major forms of transportation. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of water transportation here. But roadways are there, and we have to expect that growth is going to happen along those roadways. We have to expect that people that want to have industry need a way to get their raw materials in and their finished goods out in an efficient manner. And I hope one of the things we'll be looking at is how to optimize. We want jobs. We need to optimize transportation. Who would want to build a factory along US 19 and so that their trailer trucks could sit in traffic jams bringing in their materials or trying to get them out? I think we need to try to get away from, well, I'm going to declare this area as suburban density and this area as high density, and we need to think about what spurs the growth of density. New York is dense because New York had that resource, that harbor, that's its transportation, right? And then business and commerce grew, which then provided jobs for people, and they needed housing, and they all needed to be able to do this efficiently, and they developed in a compact location. But a city didn't happen because somebody just said, I think New York City should be here. And I think that's a mistake we're making when we say, well, this should be a community, I forget the term you used, community corner, or town square, or whatever it is. That doesn't just happen because you say it does.
Right.
That happens organically, and I think we need to think about land use planning and how that happens in an organic mode.
Yeah, to Mr. Moody's point, most growth in human history has happened organically. It hasn't really been planned. I mean, it's great for us to try to get in front of things, to try to plan things, but most of it is organic. So, you know, and when you think about organic growth, it's really all, like he said, it's all natural resources or transportation corridors, right? So, you know, we can't pick up I-75 and move it anywhere else in the county, you know. So that's what's going to drive the growth is your transportation corridors and obviously the natural resources. And, you know, so for instance, when we're looking at industrial, we talked about this before with another case that we saw a while back, where we're looking to do, I think it was IL, and it might have been IH as well, along a railroad track. You know, that's so those types of things that we need to be looking at when we're trying to figure out where the best places are. You know, these are going to come in based on natural resources and transportation corridors that we have.
I don't disagree. I think Mr. Hobby's project earlier today is a great example where you had the resource that's there. Today, the mine itself, I believe, sits under Res 1, future land use. So it's one of those strange combinations there. And then I know there's a history involved for why that's all under Res 1. But the batch plant is a perfect location next to a mine, right? Because the raw material comes out of the ground, it goes to the processing, and then it goes and hits our streets as a finished product to be delivered to wherever it needs to go. So it came forward, today's project came forward as a PD MPUD scenario. In the future, what you'd probably be looking at is it could be a PI MPUD, but it could also be a new version of I2, right? That carries the day with performance standards and whatnot. But I agree with Mr. Moody that the most of the land uses that are on our current future land use map have been determined independently by the marketplace. And so I anticipate, I should say like this, I anticipate a decrease in the number of comprehensive plan amendments that come forward, but no plan is ever going to be perfect. And so you're always going to have a comprehensive plan amendment to make an adjustment to locate certain land uses in places where maybe we're not thought about here in 2025. 2025 is definitely a different world than 1991 when the first comp plan came into being. We have studied where the location of certain types of industrial activities can go. We did that with the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council a couple of years ago, and that helped inform some of the applications on the proposed future land use map. But the vast majority of the land use categories that you see on the map today are translations from our current future land use map to the proposed future land use map.
Don't get me wrong, I understand.
Just a minute, David, were you trying to say something?
Thank you. Mr. Moody and Derek's point, so we're blessed here in Pasco County. We have north-south freight rails on the CX lines, and it's attracting business opportunities already. We have reinforced earth in southeast Colbert up in Richey with rail spurs going into their property. We have MyTech down by the airport, which is a root truss system that needs rail. And I expect, and we also have the 7 diamonds that the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval on, US 41. And those are the real corridors.
That was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about this before, and I think the chairman was in agreement. One thing that helps to make a good community helps its growth. We see this up in Hernando County. Hernando County has an airport. They've got a runway long enough to land cargo aircraft. We don't have anything like that. I guess over in Zephyr Hills we have the potential, but that's a resource that we need to
definitely
capitalize on. And business people, you know, I had a meeting with a commissioner a few months ago where there's a group of people that would like to make some very large investments in the county. But one of the criteria that they used to decide to make the investment was the availability of a 5,000+ foot runway so they could get their people in and out of here to do the things they need. I'd like to see some focus put on developing other modes of transportation other than gridlocked roads.
Yeah, when we closed West Pasco Air Park, I thought that was a bad move.
Yeah.
And we need to make some plan to locate and develop another air park on the west side there.
On the west side, yeah.
Mr. Chair, on the east side, I believe Zephyr Hills received a grant to extend and improve their.
That'd be great.
And that's why I believe that the National Guard is putting a facility in here because of now the availability of runway for cargo aircraft.
I just think we need one on this side as well.
The other comment I wanted to make has to do with housing affordability. And housing affordability is affected by a lot of things. But I feel like the word affordable housing has almost become propaganda. And we're ignoring some of the reasons why we found housing to become unaffordable very quickly. During the pandemic, when I was going to be like Trump and call him our stupid Federal Reserve Chairman, decided that we should have 0% interest rates, which means you can go out and borrow money for a home for 30 years at 2%. That creates an artificial demand for housing. And then when we saw people fleeing the big cities up north during COVID, and they could buy for 2% their own Airbnb. That ate up a whole bunch of the housing stock here in Pasco County. Well, I think if we slow down and we sit back, we're about to find that that market is going to adjust itself.
Mm-hmm.
All the Airbnb millionaires didn't turn out to be Airbnb millionaires. Now it's going to be the Airbnb bust. And the other thing is, I think we're going to find out that we've given a lot of entitlements and we had a lot of people that went crazy over real estate here as these prices were getting to insane values that are now going to suffer the consequence. On Colony Road, near where I live, there was a D.R. Horton project, Brittany Park. It reminds me of 2008. In fact, Mr. Hobby texted me about it last night, asking what was going on with this. We've got an approved townhouse subdivision. All the streets are there. All the utilities are there. All the pads are there. There's nobody there. Nobody's built a thing. If you drive through Palm Winds, yeah, there's like 3 or 4 model homes. There's nobody there. I see them clearing the old DCH timber property up on Denton Avenue as fast as they can, and I'm going, well, if they can't sell them over here and they can't sell them over here, why are we tearing all this land up over here? Have these people not got the message? I think we're going to find housing may become affordable again on its own.
Yeah, to your point, we have to figure out a way to differentiate between cyclical inputs into housing and systemic issues that are more ongoing. You know, and a lot of the affordable housing issues are cyclical indeed. So, you know, it's becomes a political popular thing to do to have that soundbite and respond to, you know, what happens to be, what everybody thinks is a permanent housing crisis actually is a temporary one due to cyclical inputs into it. So that's to your point, it's a major item of importance to be able to differentiate between something that's cyclical and something that's more of an ongoing problem.
And I'm all for property rights. I am a property rights guy. But I also need to look out, I think we all look out for what's best for our community, and we say we want to maintain values. Well, continuously allowing more and more entitlements and overbuilding that ends up resulting in empty subdivisions and waves of foreclosures, which I believe we will start to see towards the end of the year. The Trump administration's already announced that come September, all of these forbearance programs are going away. And I think if you go and do some research, you're going to be shocked when you find out the number of FHA and VA loans that are currently in default. So we're going to see another foreclosure wave. Hopefully it's not as bad as 2008. But when we have a foreclosure wave, that drives down the value of your house and of David's house and of Chuck's house. So I think going forward, when we get in these housing mania cycles, or maybe the next one's a commercial mania cycle, we need to be a little more thoughtful about preserving our own values going forward. Try to level that out a little bit rather than massive peaks and then sudden swoons in the market, because when those swoons happen in the market, that creates massive, we want jobs, that creates massive unemployment. We saw what happened in 2008. There's a lot of people that make their living in construction and in mortgage lending and real estate brokerages and land use attorneys. All of a sudden there's no work. Engineers like myself, all of a sudden there's no work for them when we have a bust. So we have to be very careful about controlling some of the booms, I think, or being at least mindful of them.
Yeah, it speaks to the interference of government into self-regulating market cycles. If you believe in efficient markets theory, you believe that the market can regulate itself, and when the government tries to introduce input into that system, it can often...
And that's what happens when we lower interest rates to nothing.
Yep.
And I understand the county commissioners didn't lower the interest rates to nothing, but
that's a good example.
We all need to be aware of.
These are all good points and a very good discussion. I would just like to keep an eye on one prize, and that's our employment generation, which generates housing demand. Moffett has 16.5 million square feet. We've got about another 15 million square feet entitled floating around I-75 and 52. We've got burgeoning industrial in our perimeter areas. We even have a 1.5 million square foot business park going into Hudson that Mr. Girardi's working on. So I think that's going to be driving our organic demand for housing, not just the in-migration play and that cyclical type of housing demand. So we've got a robust demand, and frankly, we will be under-housed in 5 years or 10 years, depending on the economic cycle, if we don't put in some housing.
Well, I think we have to realize we're always going to have cycles. And if we think we can control cycles, then you probably also think you can control the climate. But, when it's time
Well, I don't know. They've got a whole section of the comp plan where they're going to try to do that, but...
Sun comes out in the summer, it's going to be hot. And when it doesn't in the winter, it's going to be cold. And you just have to learn to ebb and flow with those cycles. You cannot, it's impossible. There's so many factors that influence those cycles. There's no way you can harness them. There's no way you can anticipate them. That's one of the hardest parts about managing growth, is that we try our best to anticipate where things should go and on main corridors and so forth, but no matter what we do, we find out 20 years later that, why did we do that? Why did we ever think that would go there? I mean, you talk about 54 when it was 2-lane. Who would have ever thought any manufacturing would go out on 52, out in the middle of the cow pasture? I mean, we would have never thought that. There's no way to anticipate that. Things ebb and they flow. And we do our best to manage it, but we can't control it. And that's the nature of the stock market, that's the nature of real estate, that's the nature of every aspect of our lives. And we just try to do the best we can. We're not God.
I think that's the nature of any good planning process, whether it's planning a community in a county, or it's, planning the future of your business or the future of your life is, you can't figure out all the details ahead of time because stuff's going to happen. The key to a good plan is being able to roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hallmark of any good plan.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Terry, just so I'm clear, as far as the schedule goes, the goal is to have the new future land use map adopted by the end of the year, and that's going to replace the current future land use map?
Yes, that's the schedule.
Okay. And also with that same schedule is to have the entire comprehensive plan, the new comp plan adopted by the end of the year?
That's the project schedule, yeah.
I think I heard the consultant say that this is really a strike-through underline exercise for the most part. I know we spent quite a bit of time today, probably rightfully so, because that's kind of our focus, being the planning commission is on the land use element, but is there going to be draft documents for the public and for everybody to
Yes.
see for all the other
Yes.
13 chapters?
There's going to be draft documents. We're going to be providing them for the various open houses. You want to speak to that?
If you don't go to the open house, I guess, are they online
Yeah,
somewhere?
they are on
Somebody-
our pasco2050.com website. And we'll be adding more chapters as we finalize the drafts.
Yeah, because I mean, in fairness, I saw this was on the agenda today, and I hadn't looked at any of the Pasco 2050 stuff to date, so
Yeah.
shame on me, but.
No, that's okay. This was more.
Which ones are on the website today?
We have plays, we have conserves, and lives. Soon we will bring up adapts, partners, and works.
Is the communications department doing anything to alert the public that those things are out there? I've received multiple complaints from citizens, some of whom I think are conspiracy theorists, but that they feel like this is all being hidden from them. So if it's there, I think there should be an effort to try to alert people that it is out there.
Absolutely. So the communication or the media relations will be doing a press release in the next 2 weeks to advertise the public workshops. And of course, at the public workshops, we will be or the open houses, sorry. Thank you, Sarah. At the open houses, we will be informing the public where those GOPs or the drafts of the GOPs are on our website. But we might want to also let them know on our social media that those drafts are available on the websites for their review as well. So I will make sure to put that on there too.
Do you think it'd be worthwhile, at least till everybody gets used to the names, at least like where it says Pasco Plays, Pasco Conserves, like to maybe next to that, when they're listed, like say what element that is? Because I can't tell you what, I listened to your presentation for however long today. I can't tell you what element's the future land use element or what chapter.
Okay.
So I don't know what I'm looking for. Am I looking for Pasco?
So grows is
Builds?
the land use. Grows
Okay.
because we're growing with the land use. They are themed chapters, so they kind of follow what the intent of the chapter is.
Well, I
So
get it.
we also have them as on the cover page as an under subtitle of the chapter. So you will see Pasco Partners is intergovernmental coordination.
Well, yeah, I just didn't
and
see that on the
public schools.
website, and so frankly, when I go there
Oh,
and look at
okay.
the drafts that are there today, I
I-
only see lives, conserves, and plays. I don't even see grows.
Oh, okay. I will add them on there. Yes, I will do that. Yeah, I'll add the name.
That's a good comment. Yeah.
Okay.
You gotta make it easy for us.
Yeah, I should say,
Whatever
not
works,
we're.
yes, definitely.
I'm slow.
Yes, we're here to serve, so we will definitely put that on there.
Great job.
There's been a lot of
Yeah,
people
you've done
put a lot of
great
hard
job.
work in this. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's an effort. It's
Yeah.
a big effort, for sure.
huge.
That's why they put you in charge, right, Terry?
He's the mastermind behind it all.
And Hyatt?
And I will tell you, I
To be clear, that
And
this is very
David.
much a community-based planning process.
Sure.
do like the flexibilities to kind of cover the gaps. I did think that that was a very positive development, and when you made the presentation to me, I thought the same thing. Okay, we don't have we've got a Res 1 and we got a Res 3, but we don't have a Res 2. At least this does something to try to cover the gap, and I think that's good.
We brought that up before.
And remember that it's an optimization of our future land use. It's not scrapping it. It's optimizing it. It's raising it to the next level. A lot of the questions that most people are concerned with is density and intensity, right? Those are still things that we will have local control over. We won't have to send our density questions up to Tallahassee if we're playing within the density ranges, right?
Right.
If we do a comprehensive plan amendment, then yes, it's the typical process, right? But if we're within our density ranges, we will be able to have those density and intensity discussions via the land development code at the zoning stage, where we can actually say, do you meet the criteria, yes, no, and make the judgment call based on the hard facts of the case that's being made. So this isn't like we're throwing things out. It's an optimization and a greater allowance for a more locally context-sensitive based approach to how we want to see density and intensity form in the county.
I really like the emphasis, Terry, on the shortening up the time when people want to use their property, that they don't have to wait 18 months
Right.
to figure out if they can use what, and that's a real problem.
It's a problem on two ends. It's one for them, which is a bigger problem.
Right.
But it's also a problem for, if we're honest, it's also a problem for the taxpayers who are having to pay our salaries to operate these long processes
Right.
all these months.
And it's a problem for the team here. Yeah, we got to get Barbara out of this deal.
We gotta prepare for our retirement.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
You're all invited to the open houses this summer.
All right.
Not all together, I guess.
Thank you.
We'll have snacks.
I have,
Well, in that
any
case-
closing comments? Any questions,
Notice
any
the county
closing
attorney
comments?
didn't bring any today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't bring any chops? He didn't send you with any chops?
Anything, no.
By the way, I was telling this side of the, because you all were talking, I had, and I don't know if this needs to be in the part of the meeting, but if you want, let's adjourn first, and then I'll tell you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so anyway, I gotta
Pasco County waterways and wildlife depend on you to keep them healthy. Excess fertilizer, grass